Steelers Nation, there are weeks in the NFL when you can almost feel the air shift around the team, when the conversations that start quietly in the background begin to echo through every corner of the fan base, even if nobody from inside the building comes out and says anything directly. This was one of those weeks. From the very first practice, it became obvious that the old debate about who starts the game just is not the force it used to be. In today's league, especially on a roster like the Pittsburgh Steelers, being announced as a starter is more ceremonial than anything else. What actually shapes a game is who the coaches trust as the snaps go on, who shows up when the tempo rises, who can stay on the field without being a liability, who responds when the offense or defense needs someone to step in and take over a moment. Fans look at the official depth chart as if it were a binding document, but inside the NFL, that paper gets torn apart by reality almost every Sunday. All you have to do is look at the recent snap distributions. One receiver listed as a starter barely cracked a couple dozen snaps, while another who almost never gets mentioned in pre-game conversations was right there in the mix, matching his usage. And then there is Roman Wilson, who has been climbing at a steady pace. At first it was subtle, only a handful of plays here and there, but suddenly he is showing up in key situations, earning more trust, being included in progressions where the quarterback needs a reliable option. You can see the entire offense shifting to accommodate what he brings. It is one thing to get on the field because of injuries or rotation, but it is something very different when a player forces the coaching staff to keep him there, because every time he is out, you can feel the difference. But for as much as Wilson's rise is worth celebrating, nothing captured the city's attention like Pierre did. His performance was a jolt of electricity to the entire defense. He played with an edge, diagnosing plays early, jumping routes, closing windows the moment they opened, and carrying himself with the kind of confidence that corners only earn after years of struggle and experience. Even among a group that had several standouts that afternoon, he was the one you kept noticing. Whether it was run support, coverage, or those moments when the defense needed someone to make a play simply to reset the tone, he was there. And that is what made the comments from the head coach so surprising. When a question came about whether a veteran corner would immediately reclaim his outside spot once healthy, the answer came quickly, almost casually, as if the decision were obvious. The idea that this veteran, who has not been having his strongest season, would walk right back into the job without hesitation did not sit well with anyone who watched Pierre's performance. It rattled the fan base because what Pierre did on the field was simply too strong to brush aside as a temporary moment. He has been consistent, disciplined, and impactful, not just last week, but whenever his number has been called. And suddenly, there is this lingering question about whether the team will stick to traditional hierarchy or whether the snap distribution will once again reveal what the depth chart refuses to admit. What complicates things is that snap counts do not lie. The beauty, and perhaps the frustration, of modern football is that every number is public. Every rep is tracked. Every matchup is measured. There are no hidden rotations, no unseen personnel choices. Fans know exactly how often each player is on the field, and that transparency puts pressure on every decision the coaching staff makes. It is no secret that the head coach hates talking about snap counts. He avoids the topic whenever possible, probably not because of the press, but because he knows the players talk among themselves. Who stayed on the field? Who got pulled early? Who earned more routes? Who lost reps? That is the kind of thing that can spread fast in a locker room. And yet, this is the same coach who often leans into instinct during games. Some weeks it works beautifully, and other times it leaves the entire fan base wondering how a player who was dominating early suddenly kept coming off the field. Everyone remembers those games when the run game was on fire, but the rotation did not reflect that reality. There have been moments when a tight end who was blocking at an elite level barely saw the field the following week. That lack of rhythm happens because decisions are made in the moment. But when he says a veteran is going to play if healthy, it does not necessarily mean the veteran will stay on the field all game. Sometimes it is just the first step of the rotation before the real adjustment comes. The truth is simple. Pierre has earned his reps. The numbers back it up. The film backs it up. He has been targeted repeatedly, as backups usually are, Yet he has allowed very little separation and even less damage. He has made quarterbacks second-guess throws. He has taken away easy completions. The advanced stats paint a clear picture of someone who is not just surviving, but thriving. And you cannot simply push a player like that back into a limited role, at least not without consequences. There is no universe in which he does not get on the field. Maybe the veteran starts the opening series, but if he gives up anything significant, even a simple lapse in coverage, it is hard to imagine the coaching staff hesitating before turning to the guy who has produced all season. Pierre is no longer the unknown backup who rotates in quietly. He is a defender in his prime, someone who has grown through mistakes, fought for every rep, and proven he belongs. When a player reaches that stage, the field has a way of demanding his presence, regardless of whatever the depth chart says. The bigger picture here is that this is not just about one game or one matchup. This is about a team figuring out who it can trust as the season gets deeper and the margins shrink. Pierre's consistency matters. His physicality matters. His instincts matter. And the way he has responded every time he is challenged matters even more. If this momentum continues, the conversation may stop being about who starts and shift entirely to who finishes drives, who closes halves, who is out there in the final moments when the defense needs a stop. Those are the snaps that define real starters, not the first couple plays of the opening series. And with all that swirling in the air, Steelers Nation is locked in, watching every report, every rotation, every hint about what the coaching staff might decide next. Because if there is one thing this team has shown over the years, it is that the truth always reveals itself on the field long before it shows up on a depth chart. Steelers Nation, the conversation about who gets the nod at corner was so intenso that it ended up overshadowing another storyline simmering beneath everything happening this week, the situation at quarterback. And it is wild how fast the tone around this topic shifted. Just a few days ago, the assumption was that everything depended on how the injured quarterback progressed, how his wrist responded, whether he could grip the ball, whether he would be cleared for any type of throwing session. But the moment the head coach stepped up to the podium and delivered one of the longest, most detailed answers he has ever given about a player's injury status, the atmosphere changed completely. Anyone who has followed this team long enough knows that the head coach almost never talks openly about recovery timelines or availability. He usually shuts those topics down with a few short phrases and moves right along. But this time was different. He broke down what conversations had been had, when they happened, what the medical staff needed to see, and what would happen if the quarterback could not practice by the end of the week. That level of transparency felt unusual, and honestly, it triggered a lot of speculation. People started wondering if the staff was preparing everyone for a reality they already understood internally. And that reality might be that Mason Rudolph is the one taking the field against Chicago. It is no longer a question of trickery or game planning mystery. It is not about trying to make the opposing team guess. It sounded like the head coach was sincerely laying out the factors involved, almost guiding the fan base through the logic behind what could be coming. And what made everything even more interesting is that Rudolph is coming off a performance that did not feel accidental. He looked comfortable, decisive, accurate. He protected the ball. He controlled the tempo. He extended drives. He did everything you want from a quarterback stepping into a difficult situation. That changes the entire dynamic because when the backup plays well, it removes the pressure to rush the starter back before he is ready. And there is another layer here. The coaching staff has to consider the long-term picture. A fractured wrist is not something you want to aggravate in week whatever. If the medical team says there is even a slight risk of making the injury worse by throwing him out there too soon, you cannot justify that just to maintain the image of consistency. This is the kind of injury that can derail not only a month, but potentially the season if handled poorly. The head coach made it clear that he will defer completely to the medical staff, and that decision alone hints that he is preparing to live with whatever they tell him. If the doctors say no, then the conversation is finished. But the quarterback conversation has another chapter that caught fans by surprise. While everyone focused on who would start, the head coach quietly slipped in another piece of information. Well, Howard would likely serve as the backup if Rudolph gets the call. That detail sparked excitement, curiosity, and a sense of anticipation because Howard represents something new, something unknown. The rookie quarterback with raw tools and a ceiling the team believes in suddenly jumps into a supporting role. It feels like a glimpse into the future, the first sign that the organization wants him involved sooner rather than later, even if only in preparation. When a rookie quarterback is elevated to backup, it is never symbolic. It means he is getting mental reps, extra film work, extra sideline responsibilities, and the kind of developmental attention that usually signals long-term investment. And that is another reason why the upcoming game feels bigger than the record or the standings suggest. It is a chance to evaluate multiple layers of the roster at once. It is a chance to see how the defense responds if the rotation at corner shakes up during the game. It is a chance to see how the offense functions if Rudolph is indeed leading it. It is a chance to see whether Wilson's rise continues, whether the running backs get a more balanced distribution, whether the tight ends get the involvement they deserve, and whether the offensive line can replicate the physicality it showed last week. These are the kinds of games that reveal a team's character because they force players to answer questions that have been circling for weeks. And speaking of character, something else has become incredibly clear through all the conversations these last few days. This locker room is built on trust. That trust is why Pierre keeps getting opportunities to climb. That trust is why Wilson is being fed more snaps. That trust is why Rudolph, after so many ups and downs in his career, still has a chance to step into these moments with the full support of the team. Being around this organization long enough teaches you that players listen to everything. They notice how the coaching staff handles situations. They notice when merit is rewarded. They notice when experience is valued. They notice when injuries are handled responsibly. And that collective awareness becomes the foundation for how they compete. The fascinating part of all of this is that the outside world often looks at these decisions as purely tactical. Who starts? Who sits? Who rotates? Who gets benched? Who gets promoted? But these choices affect the entire ecosystem of the team. When players see that performance dictates opportunity, they compete harder. When they see that production matters more than draft status, they lock in. When they see that injured players are given proper recovery time instead of being rushed back, they trust the process. And when a coach communicates with clarity instead of cryptic messages, it stabilizes the entire group. That stability matters deeply, especially when the schedule tightens and the margin for error shrinks. And right now, that margin is razor thin. These next games will determine whether the Steelers stay in the playoff race, fall behind, or rise with momentum at the perfect time. The defense has been trending upward, leaning on strong linebacker play, physical safety support, and increasingly disciplined cornerback work. The offense has shown flashes, but flashes cannot carry a season. They need sustained rhythm, consistent execution, and a quarterback who keeps the ball moving without gifting turnovers. If Rudolph delivers another poised performance, then suddenly the entire unit feels lighter, freer, more confident. When a quarterback plays clean football, everyone else shines brighter. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The New England Patriots have been thrown into a storm of whispers and speculation after a surprising rumor began circulating through league insiders. According to sources close to the situation, rookie quarterback Drake may have quietly expressed a desire to leave the organization, with the Pittsburgh Steelers emerging as his preferred destination. Nothing has been confirmed publicly, but the noise has grown loud enough to rattle both fan bases. The chatter suggests that Maye, despite his calm public demeanor, has grown uneasy with the internal direction of the Patriots' offense. Observers have noted subtle but telling signs: hushed sideline conversations, unusually tense interactions with staff, and a noticeable shift in his body language during recent practices. While these details alone would normally be dismissed as the natural frustrations of a young quarterback adapting to the league, insiders insist there is more beneath the surface. The Steelers, meanwhile, are said to be monitoring the situation with keen interest. Their front office has long admired Maye's raw arm talent and poise, and rumors claim that quiet back-channel discussions have already begun. Nothing illegal or formal, of course, just the kind of informal league talk that sparks wild speculation and fuels late-night debates among analysts. Patriots supporters have reacted with disbelief, insisting the quarterback remains committed to the rebuild. Others worry the franchise may once again be caught in a cycle of instability under center, a storyline no one in New England wants to relive. For Steelers fans, the rumor has ignited a wave of excitement and skepticism in equal measure. Could their team truly land a rising star still so early in his development? For now, everything remains in the realm of rumor. No statements, no confirmations, just the swelling buzz of a league that thrives on intrigue. Whether Maye is genuinely seeking a new home or merely caught in the swirl of speculation, the story has already become one of the most talked about mysteries of the season, leaving two AFC fan bases holding their breath and waiting for the next twist. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.